Hi, my name is Rick Chaisse. Today I'm going to do a little tutorial on the Presonus 1810 series of audio interfaces. We set these up, we configure these with the universal control software that they give you with the unit. So I'd like to tell you why I purchased this unit. I have an Aphex oral exciter, the old type piece of hardware. I wanted to be able to go out to that, assign a track out to that unit, adjust it, and then have it come back in and record it on another track. So that meant I needed playback from the DAW over the USB 1 and 2 to the 1810, then stereo analog out to the mixing board. Then I also would like the ability to assign a channel in the DAW to an analog out of the 1810. That output would connect to the input of the Aphex exciter. The analog output of that device would then return to an input channel on the 1810 that I could assign to a separate channel that returns to the DAW. I also want you to know that the Presonus can be bypassed. If you go up to the cog in the upper right-hand corner, you click on Mixer Bypass, you come back and it's bypassed. This will give you a direct connection for your audio inputs and outputs of the DAW to the inputs and outputs of the 18C. However, if you want to configure it so that you can have an in and out for an external device like I do, then set it up as I will describe. The main advantage of my setup is that you can directly monitor the output of your output device, and at the same time you can reference it against the mix. Regardless of which setup you choose, you must have the output volume knob of the 1810 turned up. My calibrated reference test showed me to set it at 245 if it was a clock. Just set it over to 3 o'clock and then back it off just a bit. Another thing, unless you have an ADAT machine, you don't want to turn this on because it just gives you a whole mess of more tracks to deal with, so leave that off. So we'll come back over here and let me show you how this system works here. A couple of little trick things. First of all is if you want to zero a fader, it's really hard to get it locked in there. If you hit the control key and tap it, it comes right in. Also, if you had an imaging, a panning thing, and you want to center it, hit the control key, it centers right up. Let's see. These are the inputs down here. They're all labeled mic 1 through 8 on my unit, although these last 4 are actually line-ins, they're not microphones. It's okay. And then to get these other channels, we slide this over. Okay, so a couple of functions here. This is the DAW channels going out this way, the mics, and you got a digital channel here that I'm not using. So if you want to link 2 channels, like if you notice here, DAW 1, DAW 2 is not showing. That's because I have them linked, and you would take and just click on that to link them. Now we have them unlinked. Since the stereo channels coming out, I do want to keep them together, and you just pull this apart and it sets your imaging left and right. Let's see what else. Also want to say, oh, the coloring. Yeah, if you want to do some coloring on all these channels, you just click on the channel. You got a basic color pattern here that you can choose from. So I'm going to put this up on the screen for a moment here. You can reference it if you want, copy and paste it. But this is about setting up the Presonus 1810 using the universal control software. This is the thing that gave me a nightmare. I couldn't find any assistance on how to configure this thing, so I had to dig into it, and that's why I'm making this video for you. So I'll show you how I have these set up, explain a little bit about it, and then we'll go back over to the DAW section, and I'll talk about how to get the signal out to your outboard piece of equipment. All right, so the first thing is we have 3 mixes here, okay? The main mixer, DAWs 1 and 2, DAW 1 and 2, which is combined here, and DAW 3, and the fader on mic 7 are all going to go to 0, get set on 0. Also, this main out is going to go to 0. All other faders should be off. I have these up because I'm kind of working on it, but all these other faders, everywhere you go, all these back here, as you can see, there's some signals coming up from me talking. If I leave those up, they're going to go out to my mixing board, and it's going to be some bleed that's going on. So make sure you pull all of your faders down. All right, mix 3-4. There's going to be 2 faders up. This DAW 3. This is the return, the out from the DAW, and the mix 3-4. These 2 have to be up in order for the signal to go out to my outboard piece of equipment. You notice that mic 7 is down. We don't want that. All other faders should be down on this section. Okay. On mix 5-6, all faders are down. Nothing at all is up. Okay. When we come back here, I want you to remember that this fader right here is your send to your mixing board. So always leave that up at 0. Okay, it's okay to pull this down while you're working. I'll show you a little bit about that when we get to that part. But you want to leave that at 0 for playback. Next, we're going to the Cubase DAW channel assignments. This is these are the outputs. These are the inputs. Okay. The outputs, we have stereo out, left and right, going to line 1 left and line 2 right. These are out of the back of the Presonus unit. Okay. The mono out that I have, and I labeled it mono out, is out on line 3. This comes out of jack 3 out of the back of the unit. This is the one that's going to go to my outboard piece of equipment. And these 2 here go analog out to the mixing board channels, input channels. Okay, these are inputs to the DAW. And you'll notice I have a left and right in. These are for doing overdubs from the board, or a stereo channel that I can bring in something from like YouTube or cassette deck or whatever I've got into my board. This comes directly out of a couple of the output channels on my board. This is what I labeled return. It's a mono. This is the mic line 7 jack, input jack in the back of the Presonus, and this is what comes out of my Aphex Exciter outboard unit. This is how it's going to come back in. So I'm going to just leave this up for a little while here. I'll talk about it though. I'm assuming you do know how to use your DAW. The basic process of this, using the outboard equipment, let's say I had a snare track and I wanted to make that snare really crisp and biting. So I would want to run that through my Aphex Exciter. And since it's an outboard unit, they don't make that exciter in any software. So this outboard unit's really got some value to it. Anyway, you want to duplicate the track, the snare track that you're going to modify. Once it's duplicated, delete the audio on that new track. Assign the new track's input to return. Assign the source, the snare channel, to mono out. So that's going to get you hooked up into the Presonus unit. And set the snare track fader to about +6 or whatever it takes. You want a good strong signal, and you probably want to bypass the inserts on the original track unless you've done some, you know, some cool EQ or something. I kind of like to, I don't know. It's like it says here, it needs review. I'm still not 100% on that. I haven't used it enough. I just got this unit. Anyway, to set a good record level in the UC, the universal control, solo the DAW 3 channel. Okay, adjust the DAW source channels level, the snare track, adjust that level and to get a good listening level on it. And then adjust your outboard device as desired. Yeah, this is the kind of cool part. Okay, so what I'm going to do when I'm adjusting the snare channel output, I'm going to be soloing this guy right here. And I'll be under my headphones and I'll be, you know, checking that volume level, make sure it's not over peaking. I got a good sound on the snare. Once I do that, then I want to solo this guy right here. This is the return from my outboard, the Aphex exciter. So as I'm turning the controls on the Aphex, I can hear the changes that it's making. And I can also solo the output from my project that I'm working on. I can bring the volume down on it. And so I have a good reference to adjust this against. Just remember that once you have this set, before you leave this control system here, put this back at 0. Really, really important. I would take the solos off, go ahead and do your, I would actually pull this down because you don't need it up once, this is just for referencing that return. Okay, once you have it set up, you're going to go ahead and record the new track while playing the entire song, unless it's just a part that you're complementing, doing some work on. Since the Mic 7 fader also sends a signal to the mix output, I recommend that you bring the fader down when you're actually recording, if you're going to listen to the playback. I usually just kind of turn it down on the mixing board and just let it record. Once recorded, disable the DAWs source track. That's the original snare track. I don't recommend that you delete it in case you decide to adjust the outboard device settings later on, which could happen. Okay, so this is me, and I wish you all the best.